All right, so for this next image, I want to show you how to take a portrait like this and really warm it up and make it kind of look like the sun was setting as we shot it, even though it wasn't. So we're going to add some adjustment layers, levels, curves, some color balance, and then add a little bit of a glow over here where the sun would be setting. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to do is open up a levels adjustment layer, just kind of bring some of this contrast in. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my dark point over, kind of increase that contrast a little bit, maybe pull the midtones back a little bit so it's not too crushed in the dark areas here. I like the highlights where they are, so I'm going to go ahead and leave those. So if we just quick before and after, add a little bit of darkness and contrast to the image here. So the next thing I want to do is open up a color balance adjustment layer. So we'll go ahead and click on that here. Now what I want to do with this is I really change the tones. Right now it's very blue and cool, but I want it to look like the sun was setting, so we're going to warm it up. So the first thing I want to do is go to the highlights, and I want to make those warmer. So I'm going to push them towards red a little bit and towards yellow. Make it a little more skin-like so it's not too red. And we may adjust some of these back and forth a little bit as we start adding other layers, but we would just want to get a good start. So, already that looks much warmer. So before, very cool. After, very warm. Looks like they're standing in the sun. So let's go ahead and go to the midtones, and we'll just bump those a little bit the same direction. So a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow. Maybe not quite so much, like 3, +3 on the red, and -5 on the yellow there. So something like that. Now let's go to the shadows. Now I think I want to keep these a little on the cool blue side, so let's see what that looks like. Push the shadows a little more towards cyan and a little more towards blue. So I'm not loving how that's looking on the beard and the hair up here, so let's see if we like it a little bit better on the warmer side. So I'm gonna leave the blue maybe +2, but I'm gonna push it towards red a little bit. So something like that. So I'm liking that a little bit more. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So the next thing I want to do is I want to play with curves a little bit. So let's open up a curves layer. I want to see if darkening some of this is going to help on the mid-tone shadow side. So I'm going to pull that down a little bit. I'm liking what that's doing. By making some of these blacks a little bit darker, kind of fools us into thinking that it's a little bit sharper. And I think overall it just looks better. Okay. So I'm liking that so far. I feel like it's maybe a little bit too saturated in the skin tones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a hue and saturation layer, and I'm going to drop down to the reds. I'm just going to pull that down, maybe -15. That looks a little bit more natural on the skin there. Yeah, I'm liking that. Great. So let's go ahead and look at before and after of all of our color adjustment layers so far. So if you hold Option and you click on your background layer, it's going to solo that layer. So there's before, and then if you're still holding Option and you click back on this eye icon on the solo layer, it adds the rest of them again. So before color adjustment layers, after. So that's definitely much warmer, and even adding some of that contrast and color made it look sharper. Okay, so the next thing I want to do after we've got all these adjustment layers is add a bit of a glow. So there's a number of ways you can do that. The way I want to do it today is with a vivid light layer. So what I'm going to do is create a new blank layer, and I'm going to double click here to select a nice warm sunny color. So I'm thinking something like that. Maybe not quite so bright, a little more orange like that. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm just going to grab my brush tool, real big and soft. And let's take this up to 100% or 99. Now we can go, we can hit 0 on the keyboard, and that'll get us right to 100%. So what I want to do now is just kind of paint over where the sun would kind of glow. And we're going to change the blending mode. So don't be afraid of painting too much or how terrible it looks right now. So something like that. And then we're going to go over here to our blending mode on our layer, and we're going to drop this down to vivid light. So that looks pretty terrible, but it's giving us a nice glow that we can change by dropping the opacity. So I'm going to bring this opacity way down. Something maybe 13%, something like that. So if we click before and after, yeah, that looks pretty good. Added a nice glow, and we can clean it up a little. You can also try overlay blending mode and see what that looks like. It's a little bit more of a natural glow, but we lose some of that bright orange color. And we can even try soft light and see what we think about that. So far, I think I'm gonna stick with vivid light, and I'm just gonna drop that down really low. Maybe, yeah, 15%. So something like that. And now what we can do is we can add a layer mask, and we can just, with a nice big soft brush again on black to hide this orange glow we just added, I'm just going to kind of paint, and I'm going to use a lower opacity, maybe like 40%. I'm going to start to erase some of that a little bit. I kind of want it to look like it's spilling over onto the subjects here, so we'll erase parts of it on the faces here, and just kind of leave some of it over here. Okay, let's see what that looks like before and after. So there's before, there's after. Definitely added a nice warmth to the trees over here, kind of gave a warm glow to this light, and then spills over onto the hair and the skin here. So I'm thinking that looks pretty good. I might mask just a little bit more off of the baby's face here. So just grab our brush tool on black, still at 40% opacity. Just do a couple swipes and clicks over here. All right, so that's looking great. Perfect. So another thing we could do, if we didn't want it to be quite so orange and we wanted it to look a little brighter, we could create another layer, and just using white on our brush tool, we could do the same thing. So we could paint white over here. It's going to kind of look like a sun flare. So we'll just paint white over here, and right now we're at 40%, and that's okay. So we can intensify this a little bit. Now the same thing, we can just back it off on our opacity. Just kind of drop that down. Actually, I kind of like it super bright like that. And then we can add a layer mask to this, and grab a big brush again using black, and we're going to hide it over the subjects again. So now we definitely want this to be toned down quite a bit. So I'm just using a nice big soft brush, painting away here and there. Don't really want it over on this side of the subjects. So kind of paint that off. Let's see if we like that before and after. So here's before, here's after. Just kind of gives it a little bit more of a natural glow. And I might drop that opacity down, whoops, on the layer here a little bit more. Maybe 25%, something like that. So with these two layers, let's go ahead and group those. So if you select, shift click on both of them, hit Command G, that will group them so we can turn them on and off together. So here's before we added the glow, and here's after. So I definitely think that helps. It really looks like we shot that when the sun was setting right behind those trees. Makes a big difference. So let's look at before and after the whole image. So again, I'm just going to option click on my background layer. So there's before any of our adjustments. Here's after. Definitely changes the feel, gives it more of a movie poster, almost a Nicholas Sparks effect. And I think that looks pretty great. You might want to play with the saturation a little bit more on decreasing those reds. Also, what we could do is we could drop this hue saturation above our above our glow group. It's a little bit tricky sometimes. There we go. And now that's going to desaturate the glow a little bit too, and that makes the skin look a little bit more natural. So all in all, I think that is a success. So here's before, and here is after. Awesome. So try and incorporate this technique into some of your photographs and show them to me, and let me know what you think about the process.